What a banger! The ever talented Rondo graces me with another song. Inspired by the works of John Carpenter, otherwise known as the creator of the Halloween series and The Thing. Although I think The Thing is a remake, but that song is going to be very useful for spooky season. October, scary. Now, I think I'm in the second half of this game. 1 second. I got something I gotta do. It's important.
Everything in order, Cat?
Kitty. It's imperative that I pet these for good luck. Each and every one.
The more urgency you're trying to communicate. Are you hungry?
Are you hungry?
I am positive that the warden
So many kitties.
and you lie.
You lie. The traveler's favorite room.
You'd probably like the milk, wouldn't you?
Wait, there's more. There's like 2 more, 3 more. There's one over here.
It is a pity that
I know this one. This one's name is Merlin.
all other livestock became extinct a long time ago.
Where's the last one? I think it's over here. No? Where is he over here?
Did I say something wrong? That is the truth.
Gotta play this game now? That's right, yeah.
Afraid to venture into high-threat sectors.
You gotta find all the cats, man. They survived the apocalypse, and they give you upgrades. Can cats die? No, no.
Don't you?
I don't even think. I think if you, yeah, like you can't shoot them, and the monsters don't go near them.
May you always land on all
Play that, yeah.
then.
The kitties. And they give you very, very strong upgrades. The cats are like little gods. Or something, I don't know. I don't know, man. Just play the game. I bought that, that apartment 205, or haunted room 205. Whatever it's called. I bought it though, it was really cheap. But that's been added to the list for October. I'll be starting, I'm still wondering what I'm gonna play next week. And I don't remember where I'm supposed to. I gotta go this way. Plenty of games that I'll be screaming. I'm sorry, Zarksic. RPG is still fucking dead, man. No update from the developer either. There you go. See? Now that's working too. Gotta do that day Doom is on the graveyard show because he'll want to watch. Yeah, I'll save that one for when he's around because I know he wants to. He likes seeing me scream too. Get going. I didn't go over my assets. What a fool I am. Ah, thanks to the 2 those arcs, I'm gonna need that one. I definitely want to start Spirit Hunter. I think I'll start that one next week. That's the, oh, it's kind of a visual novel, kind of a dungeon crawler, a very, very scary investigator. I also have some meme games for Halloween too, for October. Yeah, he might show up on his break later. I got this game called, I can't remember. I don't know what it's called. It's the title's in fucking Japanese, so I don't know what it's called. But you play as a schoolgirl investigator, and you're finding these these Ring Girl and Grudge Girl style ghosts, but you have an AK or an AR. I'm sorry, and you can shoot them. Okay, here we go. I want my heals. I'll take both heals. Play the Spirit Hunter games. I actually got Resident Evil 0 and 1. I might go through those. I'm not sure. Yap's out 13th to the 20th. Yeah, we might. I know he's been wanting the co-op stream again. Okay, I think this way. Yeah, Resident Evil 0 and 1. I don't know if I want to... I'm tempted to do like a marathon of all the Resident Evils, but... that is quite the time investment. I think I would... I don't know if I would skip some. The thing is, I played 4 and 8 recently, so... those would be more like speedruns, I guess. They are pretty fast, yeah. Those types of games are like built for speedrunning. Okay, I'm going the wrong way. 200-hour stream, yeah. I haven't played 0 in a very, very long time, but I remember that game being very fucking short. Okay, I think I just go through the big doors now. That's right out here. 0 is really short. 1 can be really short. 2 is also really short. It really just depends if you know where the key items are. If you remember where the key items are, you're good to go. You can just blaze through them in like 4 hours each. I have no idea where I'm going. Resident Evil 2 Remake, I actually thought about speedrunning. I don't know if it'd be a real speedrun though. I've forgotten where a lot of the stuff is, but... okay, that's right, I have a compass. 2 and 4. Yeah, I can do 2 and 4 at least. That's a Leon. You want me to stream those guys because they have Leon in them. Leon. Everybody loves Leon. Okay, I think I'm supposed to go this way. I guess I don't go this way. This is a supply room, though. And 3 in general is really short. 5... I don't like 5. I've never liked 5. I'm just gonna say it, man. Resident Evil 5 sucks. Even with co-op, it sucks. It sucked back in the day. And it still sucks. And I really don't understand why people like it. The thing with 5, at least back in the day, was it took the jank that 4 capitalized on and made it worse. I don't know, this is like the gunplay in 5 like sucks. Sucks on ice. I need to go that way. The door's locked. Yeah, you're like fucking Africa and it's not even a setting, like, it's just fucking... The gameplay sucks. Simple as. It sucks to play. The aiming's jank. Doom and I tried to play it... what, 4 or 5... This is like right after the fucking COVID lockdowns hit. First off, it was annoying to get working. Second off, it was, it wasn't fun. We didn't beat it. We got pretty far, but... not a good game to play. Oh, that's right. I remember. This is the shortcut, I mean. Okay. I've heard 6. I've never played 6. I own 6. I think 6 has co-op as well. But I also hear that 6 is a shitty game. 6 was worse than 5 is my understanding. But I've never played it. That's supposed to have Leon in it too, I think.
Artur, I don't have much time. They only let me make one phone call.
It did have a few goofy ass games.
Christ, how are you feeling?
Some really shitty games. And some ones that I enjoyed too. I never played Resident Evil Revelations. I think that's what it's called. There's Revelations 1 and 2. Which I think are co-op based as well.
Relax.
Never played those. Interestingly, I've never played Resident Evil 7. I've watched gameplay of it, but I've never played it myself. I got a bundle off Fanatical that came with 0 and 1, and I also got 7 off that, so that's nice. I might do 7.
I don't want to leave.
7 looked very scary.
I feel so.
8 had the big tall goth mommy, that's correct. And 8 was really fucking fun. I really enjoyed 8. It was yeah, that's right. Okay, so this is the way I need to go. And 9 comes out early next year. There is this really shitty... All it took to revive the series the goth episode, yeah. The 9-foot tall Lady D. Okay, so we have a safe room. There was this really shitty Resident Evil back in Xbox 360. I think you can still get it on Steam, but it doesn't work because it was like hard-coded to use Game for Windows Live, and of course, Games for Windows Live is no longer a thing. It hasn't been a thing for like a decade. It was called Operation Raccoon City. I don't care what anybody says, that game was a pile of shit, and I fucking loved the shit out of that game. That game was really fun to go through. One of the greatest shitty games anyone ever made. I don't really have. Wait, what can I buy? Carbine cartridge. Carbine type weapons. Interesting. Is there a carbine weapon around here? Oh. Javelin. Oh, I need space, of course. Of course, what I'm really looking forward to, and I think I'm gonna buy the Big Dick Edition just so I can play it a few days early, is burst fire weapon with a high rate of fire when charged launches homing projectiles in full auto. Yo, what? I got the fucking alien gun? Apex unlocked. Speaking of Amazons, Diablo 2 Amazons. Javelin. Nice. Okay, so I need slots. Three fucking cool. Okay. I'm not sure how much I'll use this, but I don't really use the dagger because it uses pistol ammo. Now, the pistol is called the sword, MK1615, and of course, I am the sword man. This is my weapon of choice. 93. Okay, yeah, this will be simple. Shit, oh, bullets are really cheap for this shit. Fuck. Okay, let's put away some shells. Put away a stack of shells. I suppose I'll take a stack of ammo. How much ammo does this hold? Comes in packs of 3, huh? Okay. Sure. Okay, so 2 and 3, so I can either make shotgun shells or carbine cartridges. I'll use it for a bit. If it's not really doing its job, then I'm gonna put it away. Frankly, I'd rather more heals, but whatever. Oh, I can buy a metal scrap here. Just in case. Okay. All hope abandoned, ye who enter here.
It really is something else.
What dropped down here? Oh, I see, okay. Okay, let me save real fast. I think Silent Hill Elf comes out in 10 days? Or it's gonna be closer to a week now. If I buy the Big Dig edition. Also, hype for Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterflies getting a fucking remake. Never saw that coming. Well, I guess with all the horror game remakes doing very well, I suppose it's only a matter of time. I don't remember much of Fatal Frame 2. I don't think I actually ever played it. I remember Fatal Frame 1. How do I... Can I not? There we go. Or Fatal Frame 1 being scary as shit. Bullets I got. 21 shots. Okay. Fatal Frame 2's story is supposed to be immaculate, though, is my understanding. Energy and a heal. Nice. One of the better stories in horror. Much like Silent Hill 2 remake. Speaking of, I'm waiting for that to go on a nice sale. Really? I missed? Fuck you. Whoa, whoa. Okay. That's right, gravity exists. Okay. Ah, fuck no. Okay, so it does give you free burn on these things. Just checking, make sure there's no items. Okay, cool. What is here? Gravity pad. Almost that is where I'm supposed to go. Let's check. Nice. Energy and chemicals. Okay, so... go ahead and get some ammo. Nice. And zoom. Oh shit! Motherfucker! Whew. Go over the cheap shots, huh? Let's go there. Hey, bathroom. If you gotta go, go now. Oh. I can't go through that, can I? Means there's a flame somewhere. Please let there be a flame somewhere. Shit. I don't have a pirate, do I? I do not. I don't see a fucking... You make me go back and get a pyre. Gotta be another one somewhere. Let's go this way. Aha! I missed point blank. There we go. That's what I meant to do. Frick game. It's just a practice shot, sorry. I also have this other Resident Evil style game called Tormented Souls I'd like to try out. It's supposed to be getting a sequel next month too, even. Yeah, this is Dead Space as fuck. I was saying last night, this is like Prey as fuck as well.
So many of them.
Okay, I'm getting a little where? Right there. The Prey I played was from 2007. I know they remade it in like 2018, 2019. But it's my understanding that the newest Prey also has like gravity shit in it. I haven't played it though, so. But the old one did too. Okay, that's. There's a bullet. Bullet's gonna get me killed. Versus, yeah. The old one took place on an alien ship. Oh boy. Three shots. Oh fuck. Gotcha. Okay, these are like instant kills if I charge up. No. Might have to use this more. Fuck, I should have kept my shells then. Oh well. Oh, this I can't. Okay, let's try this new gun. That's not very, not very economical. But it gets the job done. Aha. At least I have crafting stuff. Said that weird. And I also have this, I think it's a Vietnamese horror game called The Bridge Curse. I'd like to go. Bridge Curse 2 specifically. I already played the first. I played it last year, I think. I haven't the year before. Okay, that's what I thought I had to do, but what's over here? Oh, motherfucker! Me with the fucking light jump scare. Mall building city sim? What's that called? Oh, I got some cheap games too that I wanted to show you. I meant to show you last night, but I forgot. I fucking passed out after I streamed last night. About 2 hours, I'm gonna start drinking, try to create a shitty wall that used to exist already 15 minutes ago entirely from memory, as you know I have a philosopher. Yeah. Dude, that would be cool. I remember going into my local mall. They shut it down. Or there's still a mall. There's still malls in my city, but the big one downtown, I remember going into it towards the end of its after they basically closed all the shops inside down. But It's kind of fucking eerie going in there and it being so fucking empty. I remember going there as a kid. Oh shit. Oh goodness. Okay. Being fucking popping. And then you go in there as an adult, it's fucking dead. That freaky. I know why they make like horror games out of that shit. I thought that was a monster. Oh god. Okay, I saw that coming. You knew that wasn't gonna scare me. Frick game. Mall rats. $15, little man. Put that shit in my hand. Or was that Clerks? No, that was Clerks. Fuck. Yeah, that's where I'm supposed to go. I'm assuming this is the hospital. Some in there's fucking mad. Okay. Is there no... There's an item here. You gonna jump scare me, game? It's that red light. Prick. Internment camps were established to detain looters. Their numbers continue to grow. The courts of civil justice were given extensive operational powers. Locked, of course. There's something big and pissed off in there. Hold on, I want to see what this memory is over here first. Luckily, I got the double barrel.
Oh, thank God. I'm looking for my mother. Have you seen her somewhere?
No, sorry. Maybe she's been evacuated with the other residents.
I don't know. Nobody wants to tell me anything.
Calm down. She's already in the hospital with the others.
The hospital. Your brother. Gabriel, is he still there?
I don't know where he is. Hop in. I'll take you there. It's along the way.
Do you think you'll find him?
I don't know. But I heard from a mutual friend of ours. I think she knows.
Wait. You mean Veronica?
This Veronica lady keeps showing up everywhere, and I don't like it. Oh, sorry, I don't like it. Oh, I need that as a redeem, dude. What if I got like a fucking horse head as a fucking Mr. Horse redeem? Oh, sorry, I don't like it. Her parents don't like her, they just want to be different. No, they're Polish. They're Polish. Everybody here is Polish. This is Poland. See? Doesn't that look like Poland? Yeah, this game takes place in Poland. Yeah, the V's are W's, that's right. I don't want to lose any of this shit. Fuck. This is worth so much, too. Motherfucker. Well, I did get hurt. One second. Yeah, those are all loaded. Ah, fuck it. No, I didn't want to grab... Shit. I'll use it, though. Ah, there we go. Treasure. I saw some upcoming games on that Hungry Ghost Festival at Steam sale. Too. There was a roguelike on there. I meant to show it to you, but I fucking can't remember what it's called. I'll send it to you after stream. Fuck. Of course they wouldn't let me order it from... Okay. Alright. Let's do this. Railway Empire. Dude, that game is like fucking... I don't know what it is. That game like is really zen to play. The game is really calming. Of course. Holy shit, okay. Come here, boy. Come here, big boy. That's your leg. You big prick. Yeah, I just really like trains, man. Me one of those old dudes that like fucking has like a huge model train like set up in his basement when I'm old. I'm gonna be Gomez Adams. Dead Man's Curve and all that shit. Bobby McCall and Sopranos, yeah. I just really like trains, you know? Even that railway sim was kind of fun after I figured it out. I know Doom not have as much luck in that game as I did. Oh, this is safer. Nice.
My anchor was destroyed. I am unable to make any more dives. Although I managed to extract my target, returning to the terminal without the right equipment, it seems impossible. The only way I can be useful is to facilitate traversal through this sector for my successors. I intend to patch up what has been torn by the impact of the anomaly. I am initiating the Talos Protocol.
Talos Protocol.
Such is our calling.
So you have Seraphim, you got Gemini, and you got Talos. Talos, of course, being the automaton that guards the Isle of Crete, if I remember correctly. Okay, so I want my shotgun shells. Sure. I can sell this. Where's the store? Oh, here it is. Okay, sell this. Yes. $9,300 for another upgrade. Torch fuel. Ah, carbine bullets too. Put this away. Let's see. Carbine bullets. What do we have here? Fire, shotgun shells, metal scraps, chemicals, handgun ammo. I'm thinking... And I'll... Okay, that holds 15. So 2 shots will give me another slot. One more handgun ammo. That'll cap out the... Yeah, okay, and these extra shells. I should probably hold on to them if they're going to be shooting a lot of spiders at me. Torch fuel. Ah, but I have no heals. That's not good. Okay. This way. Take these. There we go. Okay, I think. Is that a core? Fuck. Okay. This way. This is the only annoying thing about these kinds of games is the inventory management. I think I need 3 for an inventory upgrade. I have 1. Yeah, I need 3. Okay, so 2 more. Here we go. Okay. I could go ahead and buy chemicals as well. Just in case. Alright. I could save. And we're good to go. Okay, so I do have to take the ladder. That's a door that goes back. Not much reason to, though. Okay, there's a oddity. Christmas! Can't bullshit that though. Getting some frame drops in here. Metal scraps. Lack of electric power, hot water, sanitation. Fuel supplies are dwindling. This not only makes transport difficult, also utilization. No spacer scraps. It sucks. Okay, and take that. Nice. Locked. Alright. Up. Okay, the ones that attack you breathe. I noticed that. Waiting for that shit to follow me in here. Is there anything in here? Nothing. Okay. Alright. You sons of bitch. Many sons, one bitch. Where are you? Oh, it's just fucking shits. Okay. I kind of like these. They're not really puzzles, but they are the resource checks. They're checking. You need the bullets to deal with these things. If you have ample supplies, it's not gonna make that big. Ah, there's a fucking game console here, of course. Okay, let me see if I can expend something. So I can grab it. Frankly, what I should do is grab it, run back. Oh, this is what I mean! You can get through these unharmed. You know what you're fucking doing. There we go. Okay. Jesus. Let's check left first. Nothing? Really? Shortcut? Ah! Perfect. Okay. So I have one torch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expend, grab the Atari, and run downstairs. Go sell this shit. I wonder if that gives me enough for my upgrade that I want to my units. Ah! Oh! 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 You son of a bitch! Don't you ever do that to me, though. Get in the business. Sucker. Oh, is this not the shortcut? Yeah, just give him one of these. He came up dissing my fly girl, man. It's not cool. Okay, I'm gonna go sell this shit real fast. While I still can. And I need my torch back. It's a store. Or here it is. Okay. Sell. Game console. Oh, yes. Okay, I think that gives me what I want, right? Yes. Nice. What? Bullshit. Okay. Alright, I'll upgrade this shotgun. Shotgun's a boss killer, so. Okay, so I can buy some scraps, too. Don't bother with the chemicals, but I will get my torch back. Save. Oh shit, that's right. Resident Evil Outbreak was a thing too. I've never played Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and 2. I should it's not. Oh, that's right. I'm not sure how important those games will be. But the main character of 9 is the daughter of one of the characters in Outbreak. Oh boy. Okay. Ooh, lag. Oh! Oh! Motherfucker, I didn't even hear that one. Chemicals. Okay, I can make a healy with that. Yep. And... yeah. There we go. Okay, that's where I'm supposed to go. And for some reason the Traveler could not step over this fucking... I hate those kinds of invisible walls, man. The dumbest invisible walls. Like, just block the whole doorway, man. Don't fucking blue ball me with this shit. Energy. Quieting. I buried them. I swear they didn't suffer. I swear to God. Swear to me! Oh God, is there more of those things? See any? Wall grabbers. Motherfucker. Alright. Not this time. Radio journal. Please, if anyone is listening, we've run out of food and some fuel supplies. I don't know how long we have left. You have to find us and give me the coordinates. And then we are in New Dawn. We are dying. Who's in here? Huh? Who wants one? Okay. Oh, fuck. There we go. Jesus. Gotcha. Let's line them up. Nice energy. Okay. I didn't even see what the other passive I got was. Handguns deal additional ammo damage on headshots. Okay. Good. Handgun's my favorite gun. Okay, I'm assuming this is a side path. Which means there's loot. Expecting something to be in here. Alright. No patch medium, nice. Okay. A core. Of course there'd be a fucking core.
It must have been Gabriel's apartment once.
Borikas. Gabriel's wife. This sucks. Okay. Give me a reason to use my bullets. Energy. Chemicals. My role model is my dad. My dad works as a shift supervisor at a steel factory in our beautiful city. He is in charge of helping workers, like Uncle, with their problems. Mom tells me he also organizes strikes for them and fights for their rights. Mom is angry and sad because he's not home. He's been gone for a very, very, very long time. My sister and I miss him very much. He promised that when all this is over, we'll go see the Vavel Castle. And he always keeps his promises. But Dad is very sick and Mom says that he'll only come back when he recovers. My sister and I miss our dad very much. I miss him a little more. Alright, kid, I don't think Daddy's coming home anytime soon. Nothing I can... Alright. This sucks. Okay, I suppose I should use my torch. I already used my torch. This is not good. Okay. I feel so bad doing this, but... It'll bite me in the ass later, I just know it. Oh. I heard it. Where'd he go? Where is he? Those bastard grabbers. More spiders. I think I got this little ditty. Dodge this. probably use this actually for those things. Because they do like the dodge. Yeah, there you are. Okay, one more shot and that should give me another slot. Okay, and down. Okay, that's my slot back. Nice. Oh, he hit his like switch on me. What the fuck? Ah, there's the oddity. Burning bodies. Disposal of bodies. Like a fuel for cremation. Like a fuel for bulldozers. Digging ditches by hand is a waste of manpower. The number of bodies awaiting burning is increasing. There we go. And the bridge is repaired. No shortcut, eh? Oh, there's a shortcut, okay. Energy. Alright. Nice, right back to the safe room. Excellent. Okay, so I have a core. But I need 3, so put that away. Got these shells. Okay. Bottom with the dagger. At least 2 spaces free. I'm gonna load up on bullets. Capped out on... Nice, okay. Right. I might be able to pull up on this too. Actually load. Oh, those are all loaded. Alright. I have 2 small heals. Alright. Should be plenty. I have a full thing of crafting shit too. Christmas, Christmas. There would be a big boy, wouldn't there? You know what? I'm missing a torch too. Okay. I'm gonna grab my torch and a pyre as well. Wish you could slide down ladders. Torch. I have a pyre, don't I? I do not. Alright. Here's my torch. Here's my pyre. What? Oh, okay, I see. I shouldn't need it. I should be okay. Alright, you big bastard. I know you're hiding around this corner. Oh. Of course, the game gives you a bunch of shit because it's about to fight a mid-boss. Damn, there's scraps there too? Fuck. Carbine? I can run back. Ah, you son of a bitch. Where the fuck is he? I hope these things don't come back. Come back alive. Of course, there's fuses. Okay. These bombs set up. He's around here somewhere. I just saw him. Fucking shells. Carbine. Fuck did he go? He's lying here, isn't he? I'm gonna fucking get close to smash through and fucking. Yeah, big boy. I know you're around here. Okay, where the fuck? Oh. The way back has been destroyed. That's him, isn't it? No, I guess not. That's not good. Okay. I can't just jump to that? Am I missing something? I feel like I should have been attacked, right? Right here? Go pop out? Go pop out? It's not. Okay, I'm assuming I need to find these fuses, so it's a pyre. This sucks. There he is. That's him right there. Shit. Oh, fuck. Pardon me, sir. Gonna run right past you. There we go. I'm just gonna unload. There we go. Oh. Gee, this thing fucks him up. Nice. I only have a pyre now. That's good. No sign of... Is that a fuse? That is a fuse. Okay, I'm gonna go burn the other big boy. Nice. Whoa! Spoke too soon. There you go. Let me go put this in real fast. Oh goodness! They're everywhere. I'm surrounded. Okay, no more carbine. But these guys are all dead, so that's good. This is the final fuse, and then I'm gonna craft a torch. Oh no, there's a pyre right there. Okay, final fuse. Pyre. Waiting for this thing to come alive. Of course. There he is. He was hiding in his fucking... Oh, there's one hiding up there. Eat this. Nice. Okay, is there anything else I should grab? One more quick scan around. Sucks I can't go back to get the other stuff. Or whatever. Carbine cartridge. Nice. Okay, I think I've swept this area. Clean, clean. Just in case. Right. More ammo. Very nice. The carbine's not bad. Even unupgraded, it's pretty good. And down. And across. And across. And up. Not across? Oh. And across. Oh, and the side of a building? God. No, wait, hold on. If I... Can I jump across? Oh, yes! Nice. I'm assuming this is a side path, if it was hidden. I can get down there, too. Okay. There he is.
How did you get here anyway?
Gus! Beloved Gus.
Thank you. It probably wasn't easy to get.
Ah, damn, Gus looking at core? Shit. And a shit ton of money. Or is that a torch? No, it's a core, okay. Okay, I should heal up anyway. Nope. This is gonna suck, but whatever. I care more about this. Any one of these are free. Thank you, beloved Gus.
He's only 8.
Oh shit.
I just want to be with him. Bad mother.
Lydia? Who the fuck is Lydia? I missed. I missed that time. Gotcha. 2 headshots does it. I'm gonna have to get a stability on this thing. Energy. Nice. Carbine cartridge. Okay. Energy. Okay. Not hurting for bullets. Wait, why can't I pick that up? Oh, it's this guy. Oh, this doesn't bode well. Where? Left. Always left. What did that change? Whoa. Oh. The skinny ones remind me of that Junji Ito comic with the holes in the mountain. It's called Amigar Fault. Jesus, there's a lot of you. Behind too. A resource check, huh? Oh boy. Okay. Big boy in here. Nice synergy. And somebody's house. I like pushing the rocks around in 0G. Meow. I at the hospital yet? Like, damn. Is this it? I finally at the fucking hospital. It's a very old hospital. Alright. Basements? What's on the side? Way in. Oh. Of course it's locked. Okay. Okay, so 6 shots. 24 and 12. Metal scraps. Diploma. A commemorative diploma for Mr. Anthony Surma, author of the Workers Unite Monument. For his contribution to the socialist visual identity of New Dawn, Minister of Culture and Sports, Andrei Raksha. I'm assuming that's how you say it. Same. This is where all their social statues are made. The Debt. The Angel of Death himself visited me today. Wanted to sweeten the ongoing apocalypse. He promised to save my immortal soul. I, of course, approached this offer with reserve, having survived one end-of-the-world scenario before, when the Soviet army liberated the camp where I was supposed to die. And for what? Just to start a new family, live another 36 years, and then watch my world fall apart all over again. Apparently, I incurred a debt, which in recent weeks has reminded of itself a terrible force. From such debt, there is no escaping. And because of this, if he takes me, I'm certain the wheel of my fate will turn again, and so I stopped caring about being saved. All I care about is you. Therefore, I told the angel I would agree to his service on one condition. I'm gonna assume the angel is another traveler. I guess upstairs? Doesn't seem like this. Watch the building. I guess I'll go upstairs and then through that back door. The essence. As I have agreed with my angel, who now impatiently visits and watches over me if he wants to save me, he must let me save you first. The similarity in this arrangement is obvious, almost cliche, but I am the smarter one here. For I know that it can only be done in one way. By saving you from being lost to oblivion, by saving you through my work. But as I watch you, I know I have to sketch quickly to capture your essence. I see you becoming the combined embodiment of all God has chosen to bestow upon me. My chisel cannot keep up, your beauty. It is as fleeting as life itself. For what is it? A single brief moment, no more. All that follows is the wither. I'm trying to fool time. I'm losing hope, for my work is endless, and my failures are numerous. I'm assuming he's sculpting someone? To quote-unquote save them? This would line up with that Talos thing we read about earlier. The Deliverance. I give up. I can't keep you in a cellar like some wild, hungry beast. Oh, never mind. I know all too well how it is. I know that you also crave freedom, and that can only be given by sweet inexistence. But do not be afraid, for inexistence is coming. When the angel took pity on me and he turned a blind eye to my hubris, he promised that in his mercy he will end your ever-growing misery. Sadly, I will not be there when you embrace peace, for the angel has become impatient and is already spreading his claws over me. You will cease to exist, but I don't know what will happen to me. Will I go somewhere where I can wait for you, or will we never meet again? Or perhaps I will end up between nowhere and never. And there too, my debt will eventually catch up to me. Basement key. Okay. This sucks. I lack spots. Let's check this back room fast. I know the basement key is what gives me just downstairs, but what's this? Yes! A tube. I feel much safer. Now I am equal to my peers and my betters. Okay, wherever this is supposed to... Oh, I see. I would use that to go farther. I need to see what's in the basement first. Okay. This sucks. Something needs to go. Smells a torch. Ooh, hold. Secret. Oh, holy shit. 440 energy. Okay, basement key. Sculptor's basement. Now, knowing this game and other survival horrors, grabbing that key is gonna piss off something. Luckily I got this. I guess not. Never mind, I was just fucking wrong. Go to the basement. What the fuck? Did he sculpt a fucking... Is there a... Let's see. I'm thinking he kept whatever he was in love with in his basement while it was fucking... while it was infected, and then he sculpted it. Holy shit. Okay. That means it's still down here, right? A traveler! Hold on, traveler. Let me do the shit first. It's cool shit. I'm getting one of those. I'm getting my torch back. Surma Antoni. Melee attack and stomp have vastly increased damage? Oh, fuck yeah. Oh. Phylactery full? Oh, shit. Okay, more damage against burning enemies. Against the additional that energy increase is pretty gnarly. I think it's 20% is what it seemed like. So I suppose that would go first, because I'm not... Yeah, goodbye, Lydia. That's fucked up.
Transfer completed. Essence acquired.
Traveler. Let me look at this. Marika. No. Surma. The tiger was made a living as a sculptor. His entire family... Something. Due to the nature of targets, I decided to deal with him. Mental condition index. Nihilism. Alright. What the fuck? The sculpture's gone. Woo! Oh, fuck no. It's just taking a walk, yeah. I mean, he had 6 legs, right? Motherfucker. Dude, he's lucky I didn't fucking shoot at it. Let me guess, because I got his phylactery, it's gonna haunt me now. Bullshit. What fucking rot. Oh, that's good. Okay, I love it. Love statues moving around by themselves. So good. Alright, let's get the fuck out of here. Another apartment complex? How far away is this fucking hospital, man? Oh boy, okay. Alright. Let's do it. Part of me wanted to fire, and part of me said, nah. Should have actually used my fucking bullets too. Ah, secret. No more chemicals. We'll see about that. Secrets. Nice. Another core? Holy shit. Okay. Fuck. Fuck it. I need these. All of them. The good news is that means I'll have an extra inventory slot once I return to or get to a safe room. In these kinds of games, inventory slots are king. Motherfucker! God damn it. Fucking Arthur. A dead end. Dear Comrade Konarski, this case has outgrown the capabilities of the local police, and I must formally request that it be transferred to your office. We are unequipped to handle the growing number of mysterious homicides. The morgues continue to discover strange markings on victims' heads, and our investigation has run into a dead end. The only tangible lead we have are testimonies of people who witnessed mysterious individuals dressed in heavy military gear resembling diving suits. We suspect these might be agents of Western intelligence, but they've covered their tracks too well. Too well for us. Even if we were to identify and confront the perpetrators, then I believe we possess the resources to carry out the arrest. Commissioner Mikhail Ryback. Okay, so whatever the travelers do, it does kill them. It does kill their extracted targets. Or at least it leaves a lifeless corpse behind. Well, you have their essence in that phylactery. Oh boy. Okay, let's check this apartment first. Who's in here? Nothing, really? Oh, I see. Aha, secrets. Oh my god, really? Fuck, okay. Doesn't look like this is safer close by either. This sucks. Okay. I'll use, I suppose handgun bullets. Nope, that's not a handgun bullet. That's good. Fuck. Energy bank. That'll pay off itself. Here's some. Gotcha. Sucks. 3 shots. No chemicals. Okay, so I'm not gonna bother. Let me continue. Energy. Or jump? Oh. Okay, let's see this building then. Hospital? Is it hospital time yet? Nope. Another apartment building. Safe room. No, just a fucking... Are you serious? Okay, that's just a Huey. I swear to fuck, it was another core. There we go, safe room. Idly. Okay, let's fucking buy shit. All this. Grab my other core. Cores. I got 4 cores, damn. Okay, I need this, definitely. Another 3 gets me suit integrity, so that's HP. Yet another core, okay. Very nice, that's 2 cores, 3 more. 3 more for HP. Higher.
My work is endless. My failures are numerous. I managed to set up an ARC-class outpost, but I still can't produce enough power to carry out my plan. Every time I manage to weld something else rips. Yet, I must try. If I succeed, I I might be able to stop the anomaly's negative impact on the surrounding area. Only then will I be able to deliver the long-acquired essence to the terminal.
Such is our
Such
calling.
is our calling.
The fuck? Is that a Senate terminal? No. Must just be like a giant power bank. Okay, yeah, I think I need stability. Maybe charge speed. I don't know. Bullets. I need bullets. One more shotgun shell. Carbine. Okay, so one pyre, 2 torches. I should have heals. Heals. Another one of these. There we go. Okay. Buy a few chemicals and a few metal. Okay. That should do it. 24 shots. 12. 2. 3 more chemicals. Yes, okay. Let's stock up on these. Okay, that should do it. This one traveler put all this together, huh? Wait, go from here. No ground pads. Oh. That's where I came from. Oh, I see. Okay. There's grab pads. Whoa. I'm assuming that's the way I gotta go. Let's go this way instead. Another apartment. Thank you, traveler. Secret room? Must be. Lots of energy, damn. Nice. Okay. All right. Weird. I heard that shit. I heard that. But a no return. Okay. Let's explore this little building, I suppose. This way. Damn. 1861, huh? Really base. Oh fuck. Lots of energy. Supply room, I suppose. I don't have anything to spend my. Nah, it's a waste. Okay. Too bad. Continue. Finally, to the hospital. And down. Okay. Don't like this. What, did I walk into fucking Silent Hill? Jesus, okay, it's definitely that way. Where the fuck? Oh, another memory.
Tell Zybert we are unable to
Zybert.
accept any more patients. We can't let the same thing that happened in the steelworks happen here.
These people need our help. We need to be there for them.
But not at any cost. We must still exercise caution.
I'm afraid it's too late for caution.
What are you talking about?
It's already happening everywhere. And no matter how hard we try to isolate, nothing can stop it.
Veronica. Oh, that was a weird sound cue. Okay. Here. Here is the hospital. Unity Hospital. Thorough energy. Nice. Oh, the rift is right here. Okay.
Initiating the anchor frequency synchronization.
Search the whole building. You ought to check every nook and cranny.
What about the civilians?
Report, soldier.
There we go.
Temporal destination reached. Proceeding with the search for the target, Dr. David Zibbert.
Zibbert. Flashbang. Does get bright. Traveling through time. Okay. So this should be the 80s of... Yeah, Poland in the 80s. Boards. Everything has not quite gone to shit, but it's about to.
I'm recording these reports of work here for you. Maybe any of these will be useful to you in the future. If there is any future, of course. The hospital is bursting at the seams. We are short on beds, not to mention medical supplies. I have to keep trying.
Boy. Scraps. Energy. Energy. I'll hold on to my scraps. Strolcovaka. Guard. Key. Okay. Oh, it's already gone to shit here. Okay. Fuck. Being A. Elevator out of order, I can see. Being B. Diagnostics. What the fuck? I could put something here. Something goes there. I don't quite know what that machine is. Guard room key. Okay. Lay a trap.
This is Dr. Weronika Kamiński. I'm
Stuck in the elevator on level 3. I need
help. Can anybody hear me?
I can.
Shit. It's you. You are a stubborn bunch, aren't you? Well, tough luck. Guess you won't get me as long as I'm stuck here.
I'm not here for you. My target is Dr. David Zibbert.
what?
David! And how has he done you wrong?
He possesses the information I'm after. I am not here to hurt him. I'm here to
Extract him? Yeah. I know all about it. Hate to break it to you, but you're wasting your time. If you're looking for information, it's me you want. David and I, we worked together. There's nothing he wouldn't tell me. And
See about
I
that.
can share whatever I know.
I need to know everything. About this deal works. The outbreak. The other traveler.
Yeah. I'll tell you everything. But first, you'll need to get me out of here. You're good with that?
No tricks this time.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Any idea what's blocking the elevator?
Tumors.
Biomass. It seems to have accumulated here in order to form a nest.
Fuck. We need to get rid of it.
I can't burn it. It's covered in old sand.
And it regenerates too fast, I know. But we could use something we were working on here. A sort of toxin? The problem is, you can't just inject it anywhere. We need to find the right spot. It's hard. You need to get 3 specific formulas. They're designated Z5,
C66 and X44.
Find them and I'll tell you how to mix them.
Okay.
Check the infectious diseases ward, the medical supply perhaps, and hell, let's try my office too. It's in the administration section.
On my way.
Keep this channel open.
I'll try to guide you through this mess.
All right. Energy. Nice. Okay, so that's a plague. Oh.
So you ended up here.
What to do? What next? I was hoping to find you here. Sneaking into the hospital is not difficult. Everything's out of control. Chaos everywhere. It's like some kind of war here. So much pain. Everyone is begging for help. Some for death. The doctors are doing their best, but they just can't message. Maybe Edward was right. Angela. Ah, okay, I see. Okay, so Ward A is unlocked.
Entering Wing B.
Wing B, sorry.
That's where my office is. Please don't mind the mess.
Viddy? Elevators.
Acknowledged.
Nursery Operation Block Administration. Okay. Acknowledged.
There are bullet marks everywhere.
The army must have gotten here after the steelworks spiraled out of control. I think they were looking for Zibet. They encountered the infected patients and panicked. Shooting began.
Just to be sure. Fuck. I missed him. Oh, the nursery. Oh no. The babies. Wait, was that door unlocked? Is that a neck? The neck is really long. CPR. Gonna be lots of chemicals here. About the sickness. I saw body bags being carried out. Many patients lie on the bare floors. Some are tied to beds with belts. Screaming in pain, crying. Some are just begging desperately for someone to embrace them, like that would help to ease their pain. They're going mad. I feel helpless, exhausted, scared, alone. I know I should get out of here, but I feel like I'm needed here. How to help them? How could I leave her just before Christmas? Angela. Is that thing in here? These things like to play dead. Chemicals. I don't really need the chemicals. Okay. Now I can go to nursery. Oh shit! Motherfucker. That was scary. Luckily I got enhanced melee. Tons of scraps too. Uh-huh. I don't think that's Sergeant. I think homeboy just met his end. Let's go check on him. Sergeant. Oh! Oh goodness! Okay, so I have 2 heals, 2 small heals. I'm doing okay for now. I heard some walking out in the hallway. I was gonna come in. Nope. Too slow. Oh, I see. Okay. It's a safe way. Oh, that hurt. That hurts. I'm pierced. Okay. Yeah. Morgue workers note. Tell Zibbert that he needs to see the bodies we took to the morgue yesterday. It's urgent. We had quite a fucking surprise this morning. Is he so tired that he sends us them half dead? Coals. Okay, can I make a Healy? I can. Nice. Don't worry about the scraps. Ow. Are you still alive? Holy shit, he's big. Okay, I see why. Jesus. Good thing I just made that Healy. Oh, we're in the basement now. Okay. I fucking hate these things. The green splatties wouldn't be so fucking annoying. The thing is they're more of an annoyance than anything. Right, into the tumor. We have ample ammo, which is good. Oh boy, here, we're gonna do this, huh? Alright. It's gonna be like that, huh? Shit, okay. 2 heals. And shots. 7 shells. 9 carbine. Left first, I suppose. You want to tell me why that fucking gurney is moving by itself? And it stopped. That's what I fucking thought. Oh, of course. What is this? Kostika. The morgue. Oh boy, okay. I'm gonna assume the morgue is where I'm supposed to go.
I found the passage in the underground.
Yeah, it's locked, of course.
It's locked. Obviously.
Obviously.
Try searching by the morgue,
Yeah.
would you?
Yeah, figured as much. Alright. Let's fucking do it. So, 2 heals. 1 torch. Make handgun ammo if I need it. Alright. Now what do you know? A resupply. Smells like a fight. Coroner's statement. After an in-depth analysis of the boy's body, it has been concluded that he was not infected with the unknown virus. His body does not reveal pathological conditions of the bones or skin. No lesions on either surface. No infection on the internal organs are observed. However, it is difficult to assess what the immediate cause of death was. Due to the marks around his cranium, we suspect severe cerebral trauma. It also appears that he was exposed to a powerful electric shock. Jesus. This must be the Traveler extracting him, right? The exact time of death is also difficult to assess. The cause of the boy's death somehow altered the decomposition process. Rigor mortis was not observed either. Further investigations are recommended, particularly given the similarities observed in other cases. Why did they extract a child? Strange. This just reeks of a fight. Okay. Yep, here it comes. Waste no time. Okay, that forced my camera to look. Oh, I can't actually hurt that. I wonder if the hallucinations are time warps or not time blips. Or if they're in the Traveler's head. She's got a lot of flactors there. I never understand these shadows burned to the wall. Doctor, you have to help me get my son back. What they showed me is not him. It's some other boy, very similar, but not my Marcel. Believe me, another helplessly heartbroken mother's looking for this boy. But this can't be my son. He wasn't murdered. He was taken. The police won't talk to me anymore. They tell me I'm crazy, but it's not true. They want to silence me because they know my husband is a military man. They don't want this to spread. I beg you, Dr. Zibbert. You're my last hope. Lydia Martzek. Oh, Lydia is the other phylactery I destroyed. Why did... So Lydia and the boy were extracted. Interesting. I wonder if the hallucinations are different if I kept her. Oh, I need this. And I suppose because I grabbed the key, that's gonna trigger the fight. Alright, let's go. Come on. Gotcha. More of ya? Prick. Yeah. Oh, you are very big. Okay. Torch now. Torch. You can spit. Oh, fuck. Okay. Let's... Didn't run around. Gotcha. Okay. Another one. Gotcha. Not good. Not good. Okay. Oh shit. Gotcha. Oh. Oh, you are all very big, aren't you? That shit is... That's one. Eat this. Oh! This. What? No way. No. God damn. That doesn't seem right, yeah. What the fuck?
Suspended between space and time.
Okay, I just want to check if there's any supplies in this weird... good place. Nah, it doesn't look like it. I grabbed everything. Oh, and there we go. Back to normal. Okay. No shells. 11 pistol shots. This sucks. This was not open before. Resupply. Nice. Nice. Buckles. And some money.
Gabriel's condition is deteriorating. He has stopped responding to any stimuli. He has a high fever and is delirious. His brother asked if we could take him home. He knows we can't do anything for him anymore. Interestingly, Gabriel keeps drawing. Still the same thing. The visitor.
Traveler. Presumably it's the warden. Alright. Holy shit. Okay, alright, okay. Enough of that. There's more big pricks? Oh, I see. Oh. God damn. Okay. Let's push this out of the way. One shell, 10 pistol, 9
I
carbine.
have the results. His molecular structure looks as if he came straight from the beginning of the goddamn universe. Not a trace of disease in him. So, the only thing I can be sure of is that change does not come from the visitor. I think I can confirm that.
Okay, so travelers did not spread the disease. And it sounds like the warden had an interesting... What do you call it? Carbon dating?
The doors to the operation block are locked.
Pretty sure the hospital's director had the keycard. Find it.
Oh, I can make torches again. Yes, I need these. Absolutely. And there's spiders. That's good. This looks like the hospital area from Resident Evil 3. Shortcut? Oh, can I run back to the... Wait, there wasn't this. Oh, fuck. Oh, that's gonna save me a lot of ammo. Nice. There wasn't a safe from here, right? Shit, okay. Alright, at least I have the shortcut, just in case. Oh my fucking goddamn. Light him up. Gotcha. I may as well deal with them now, right? Unfortunately, I'm full star for ammo. Let's fix that. There we go. Oh, nice. Speaking of, resupply. More chemicals. Really use those scraps. Playing God. Colleagues. Dr. Zibbert has succumbed to delusions of grandeur, casting himself as humanity's savior, while leaving us to deal with the chaos he's unleashed. His reckless admission of patience has turned his hospital into a ticking time bomb. Mark my words, this will lead to disaster, and I refuse to be among the casualties. I'm leaving Unity Hospital and urge you all to do the same. Save yourselves while you still can. Today in the meeting room, I'll end this farce in my own way, by hurling my access card at the man's head. Let it be the final chapter in the career of Dr. Alotsi Zubrikowski at this forsaken place. Farewell, and good luck to you all. Dr. S. More keycard shit. Okay. At least the tyrant's dead, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, 17 shots. Meeting room. Access card. Nice. Go back to sleep. Chemicals. Okay. 4 chemicals. Is that one awake too? No.
What's this? A combination.
Combo lock. Oh. Coping on the frames. Holy shit. Okay. Infectious diseases. That's where one of the things is. Another combo lock. Where does the keycard let me in here? Nice. Energy. Kamitska. Ah.
I have acquired the first formula.
Good. Now get the other two. Messages.
Veronica? Veronica! Veronica, as soon as you listen to this message, I need you to come to the steelworks immediately. Something is happening to him. He's not responding. They want to take him away. If we don't get him out now, everything will be lost. I'll try to keep him safe. Whatever it takes.
Oh, shit, motherfucker. You fucking would. God damn. And there's more of the bastards. Put him down. Put them all down. Come and get it. Oh. Jesus. Okay, some energy. Yes, money. Money. Metal scraps. Very nice. This is supply room. Beating like a damn heart. What's over here? Oh. And I suppose that unlocks the door right here. Nice. Gun. Energy. Director's code, Dr. Zubrkowski. I know we've had our differences, but I trust we can set them aside in these difficult times. With the director missing and my attention required at the steelworks station, or a steelworks incident, I need to ask you to handle some of my duties in the interim. For your convenience, the current code at the director's office is 9509. Feel free to make use of the places you see fit. I have very confidence in your professionalism, old friend. Sincerely, Zibbert. 9509. Okay. Nine 9509. Liturgical vessel with wine, usually standing by the tabernacle. Oh, Resident Evil puzzles, huh? Minimizing loss. Let's give him to Zibbert. Then they won't do anything to us. It's all his fault. As soon as we find out where he is, bring him to him. Look at the patience. Ammo. Nice. Safe from anywhere, man. This sucks. Tabernacle. Is there a church in this hospital? Infectious diseases. Really? That's it for this floor then, right? To go around. I'm waiting for that big dick to fucking stand up.
Look, I have a task, and I want you to be honest with me. What is it? At the steelworks, I was with someone. A man. Artur, I need to know what happened to him. Did you extract him? Alright, I get it. Keep your secrets. Maybe it's for the best.
Keep your secrets. Shit, and I have no map. I'm gonna get a little lost. It seems like everything in this wing is completely good. Supplies in there, right? I hate that. Okay. This will give me space. I go with the fuel. I should not have gone for the fuel. Fuck. Oh well. Can I leave the toxin here? Oh, nice. Perfect. Okay. Scraps. Nice. Perfect. And a comic book. Return of the Rat Queen. Is that a pyre? Fuck. I'll keep in mind of that for later then. Yeah. Pyre and chemicals. My old pyre despawned. Sucks. Caplica. Chapel. Oh.
Collective technology. The path has been paved.
Okay. 2 cores. One pyre. Another core. Okay, this is good. This is very good. 4. Okay, put these away. And spend these. Oh, the inventory slots would go be great. Fuck it. I need the slots. I need as many slots as I can get. It's like the max is 12. Everything just yet, so I now have the chalice. I'm assuming it unlocks this door. Oh, maybe not. I'm missing another chalice. Okay, so let's definitely take that. I'll take these. I don't know if I'm gonna use them. I'll definitely use them, but 3 shots frees up a slot, and then I need ammo. Ammo bad. What can I upgrade? I can. Nice. Wow, that last bit is a huge jump in damage. 25 extra damage. Nice. I should buy the scraps. Scraps. Okay, and how much shells? This extra slot is going to be very handy. Tons of ammo. Max out on those. Now I need heals. That's the other thing. There we go. Alright. It's definitely safe. What time is it? I don't know if I'll finish the hospital, but try.
I too have a question.
Ask away.
How is it you know so much about the vocation?
Well, I had a quick crash course. While the Traveler was being held at the steelworks, we were brought in to examine him. We spent many hours together. Mostly just talking. He really seemed to trust me.
Did the examination bring the desired effect?
Not particularly. That's probably why they took me away from him. I wasn't able to give them what they were really hoping for. But anyway, it's a long story, me and him. Let's focus on the task at hand.
She talks about him like she's his friend. That's probably why he went mad. Oh, fuck. Medical supply. Orthopedics. Alright. So there is one here, and there's one that way. Okay. I need that for torches. Money. All deliveries have stopped. I am very sorry. You have to make do with what you have. Try to hold as long as you can. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm assuming I had to look through this window and shoot the thing that burns. There it is. Please tell her with that smarmy Dr. Kaminsky that what she wishes for we do not have in stock. For such substances, let her take a trip to Warsaw at her leisure, or perhaps even back to Moscow. Besides, people should not be lavished with experimental crap that operated on. Have you seen their bodies? P.S. Do you know what she said? That I look like the kind of person who would be most happy to just give everyone a tall glass of iodine and send them home. Bitch. I haven't ever seen such impertinence in my career. Out of the medical supply department, Dr. Elizbieta I'm not even going to try to say that. Projik? Second poison, and I have no fucking slots. Okay, this one. Okay, number 2.
Good job. There's only one.
No. Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna run this back. There's no point in holding it the entire time. Here? No, that's the save room. This side. Z5. Okay. There's an extra pyre in here, right? Yes, nice, very nice. Quick save. And we continue. Last toxin. Intensive care. Motherfucker! Holy shit! You know, I saw that door, and the first thing I thought was something's gonna fucking come out of that door. God damn it, man. Shit. Fucking God. No scraps. These chemicals. all these chemicals. You know what? I'm gonna make some shells. I deserve them now. Yeah. Yeah. Nice, so that's 5 shots. Infectious diseases. Okay. Last toxin. And we need a key. Locked. Oh, nice. Oh, come on. It was right there. Okay, I'm assuming this was little bro's fucking room because he's drawing the traveler all over the place. Yep, Gabriel Brica. Dr. David Sibbert, medical history. Patient was transferred from Steelworks to the state of advanced activity of the unknown virus. Decision was issued for his immediate isolation. On the night of December 22nd, the patient experienced a series of microstrokes, most likely caused by degeneration of the circulatory system. There was also a high fever. Despite this, the patient was still delirious, agitated, aggressive, and resistant. He wanted to leave the isolation. The decision was made to restrain him. The next morning, he was observed to have multiple skin lesions, which caused degenerative adhesions between tissues. His hands were permanently fused to his torso. Surgery to disconnect these tissues was strongly advised against due to the patient's condition. Motherfucker, Archer, you... you son of a bitch. A core, shit. Fuck it. Not worried about the heal too much, it's the core I want. And I have 2, what do you call it? Oh my... Oh, it's a good thing I didn't take it. There we go. There we go. Restocked. Thank you, Gabriel. Prick. Alright. How many more of you bastards are there? Need the key to get the formula. Oh, this does not bode well. Holy shit, okay. Yeah, right. Gee. Okay. Tell Borika that his brother escaped from the isolation room. If he doesn't believe he had the strength to do it, show him the face of the nurse who tried to drag him away from the window. We have no idea where to look for him. He kept mumbling something about the people in the steelworks, but no one gets in there anymore. And hopefully no one gets out. Okay, so he returned to the steelworks after he escaped from the hospital. And he met Gabriel. Gabriel shoots him. Or Arthur shoots him, and then I distract him. Oh, shortcut. Excellent. Jesus Christ. Okay. Ah, this is the... okay. I was in here. Wait. Was I?
Mr. Berica, what can I do for you?
It's about my brother. I wanted to ask.
Arthur, I know how hard it is for you and your family. And trust me, I'm not speaking just from a doctor's experience. But, as I told you before, there's little we can do now. At least, for the present.
It's not like that at all. I know you're doing what you can, but maybe it's time for me to take him home, huh?
Home? Arthur, my word, you understand the gravity of the situation. This is dangerous.
It's okay, Doc. Take good care of him.
It is dangerous for you.
You're right all along. They want him and they want him bad. Not to find a cure though, they want to use him. It is time for this plan of yours, but don't try to play a hero, okay? Please stay safe, Veronica. Use him as like a weapon? Kaminska. Let's sum this up. An antigen can be a small part of the disease-causing organism, such as a polysaccharide or a peptide. Or it could be the entire organism in a weakened or inactive form. So it would seem that we have such things in abundance, right? No, no such thing. I'm still not able to isolate it. It's like it's not there at all. I've done the research you asked for, and I have a lot of ideas about the components that would make a vaccine of this type safe and effective, but without the fucking antigen, they're simply useless. Though there could be one interesting side effect. If they can help stabilize the infected organism, they can potentially destabilize it, and very abruptly. Did I look for a cure and invent a poison? Maybe. Perhaps we can find some use for this toxin. I'm going back to work. P.S. Yes, I ate Veronica. God. The thing. Staunch key infects this disease ward. Motherfucker, they just keep spawning. Prick. Administration. Okay, that's the other ward. Looks like a heart.
Perfect. That should be it.
Okay. Key. Use the key. We grab the... Oh, shit. We need the toxin. Okay, last one.
Great. Now we need to mix them in a centrifuge. There should still be a working one near the elevators.
I hate to do this, but I have the resources, so. Oh, fuck no. Not even gonna bother. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Fuck this. Umpire. I think I can beat the hospital tonight. I'm assuming that's not the end of the game though, so it's gonna be one more stream after this to beat this game. Core way. I can sell. God damn. Hell yeah. $7,008. There's at least one more safe room after this, and I can max out my, or try to max out my gun. With the shells. Be the torch. Okay, so got this. Cap that. Okay. Should be good to go now. Save. Definitely saving. I'm missing a chalice, though. Didn't see any other room. Well.
I'm approaching the centrifuge. How do I proceed? Just put them in. You'll manage. It is done.
Okay.
Good. Time to put the toxin in its system. Get to the heart.
Yes, ma'am.
What did the military want from the Traveler? You just don't quit, do you? At first, they believed that since his appearance coincided with the outbreak, he was the one responsible for it, but David thought that through him we would find a cure. Without the results, the government decided that he would serve them to achieve their other goals. And what were those goals? What goals can a bunch of morons with guns have? Even bigger guns.
Of course. Okay, so there's no chalice in here, huh? Nope. All right. Get rid of this shit. Take that.
I did it. It's dying. How does it look on your side? Has the lift been unblocked? Veronica,
Is she not? Is she fucking die?
are you there? Veronica?
Oh no. The lack of map makes this a little annoying. I hope I didn't miss that chalice. I thought it was pretty thorough. The only other room I could think of it being in. Veronica. She's definitely still alive, right? Alright, move this. Did it drop her? Okay, I'm gonna save. Did it drop her fucking? Dropped her elevator and she died? Veronica? Traveler gives no fucks.
Veronica, where are you?
Veronica. What happened? Prayer for cure. I sent all the tired nurses home. Zibber's still on the way. He says something important has stopped him. It could be more important than these people shackled here. I can hear them screaming. I've been a nurse for 20 years and I've never seen so much pain in my life as I have today. I have to go get them now. Or I have to go to them now. Whatever Zibber is planning, I hope he can make it in time. We need him. He said he was bringing something here. Let us pray it is a cure. Ward's sister Magda Grunberg. Don't think he brought a cure. Magda. Supplies. And a pyre. Oh. Boss fights? Preparing for the visitor. First things first. I need a working sockslit extractor. The old one has a shattered siphon. I smashed it when I moved the equipment from the lab. Solution. Steal one from the military tomorrow. New glass for the glove screen needs to be installed. Glass has been obtained, now installed in such a way that the chamber can be hermetically sealed. Last thing we need is a contamination incident. That's it. The rest is almost ready. I'm nearly there. Just have to wait for the right moment. I would sooner die than let these brutes lay their hands on him. It belongs to us. They love fucking with the warden, don't they? Suppose I can use this. Okay, we've got full stacks and everything. Ready for this boss. Two pyres, one torch. Storage. The visitor is coming. He will heal us. The doctor promised. They're using the visitor to try and get a cure. Is that why they ripped off his arm and leg? Okay. Let's do this. Oddities. Oh. I just had flashbacks to the fucking alligator from Resident Evil. Gator boss. Some big's gonna fucking try and eat me. Here it comes. Door's locked, of course. And I'm assuming it's in one of these fucking doors. Alright, you big prick. Nope. Back the way I came. There he is! He is really fucking big! Holy shit! Okay, he's like the first fucking boss. Okay, okay. Yeah, bravely run away. Yep, time to run. Bye-bye. Oh! Son of a bitch. Okay, that's 3. No, that's 2. Torch. Yes. Not so scared now. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he fucking go? There he is. Yes. Oh my god, that hurt. That hurt a lot. Oh my god. Okay, we're good. We're good. One more torch. We're not good. We're very not good. Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh no! No. Where'd he go? Ah! Oh my god! Another one. Supplies. Fuck. Oh my god! No! Oh goodness! I don't know what the hell they're feeding you. But you were too damn big! I need a boom. I need a boom boom. I need a boom boom. I need a fucking boom boom. Oh shit! Oh! God damn it! Ah, he's fucking okay. Son of a bitch! I can't craft any fucking. Ah! You motherfucker. You would. You fucking would. Got you. Oh, he's dead. Fucking Christ, man. Jesus. Okay.
Safe. For now.
I want all these. I want a little bit of everything. As reparations for kicking my ass. It's nice. Okay, one more quarter. Get the fuck out of here. Fortune, nice.
Be alive. Please.
Be alive. So I'd like to finish the hospital. Where I end it. Oh no. Oh no.
Not like this. God damn it, David. You were supposed to bring him here. You said it's the safest place.
Are you hurt?
No.
I'm sorry. Your mission has failed.
Compassion from the traveler.
I have failed. Everything, everyone I cared about, gone.
And the other traveler? Where is he?
I don't know.
What caused the outbreak in the steelworks? Was it the traveler?
No? Are you insane? The Pathfinder would rather die than harm us.
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder.
That's what he called himself.
Why were you looking for him? Why is he so important to you? Do you still think he will help you discover the cure?
I was trying to protect him, all right?
Why?
He did me a favor. And I was trying to return it. I was his target.
You? Why didn't he perform an extraction on you then? You were destined to make the ascension.
Maybe because I didn't want it. Or maybe he just felt that what you were doing was more harm than good.
You are deluding yourself. I have seen the future. Without the extraction, you are doomed. You all are.
In that case, maybe it's better that we don't exist at all. Or maybe, just maybe, it's not worth giving up yet.
Secret.
He can still help us find him.
Okay? So you are fucking insane. Look at him, damn it! No, no!
If I don't try, whatever is left of his mind will soon fade away. He will be gone forever, and with him, all the answers we need. The steelworks, the outbreak, his mission, my awakening. I need to make sense of it all. It's not worth giving up yet.
Can you promise me it will bring him ease?
Well, it does kill them. The extraction process kills whoever gets extracted, so As far as she's concerned, yeah.
Yes.
Do it.
The cat. Factory full, that's right, okay. I suppose Surma, yeah. Does he give? Fabrication recipes require less metal scrap. Oh, shit, yeah. Finally. He's sculptor.
Target extraction completed. Essence acquired. The Pathfinder. I have to tell the warden.
Oh, the warden is. The warden's definitely the Pathfinder.
Something's not right. Need to get back to the terminal.
That's a long walk back. Fuck, man. Yeah, we're roughing it, alright. Motherfucker.
It's so dark. Monsters! He trusted me. He made a promise. I should have stayed with him.
Oh boy.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
We could be together another dimension and be free.
Oh boy. Oh, I'm actually teleporting all over the fucking place. Where? This way.
Please, Elisa. I don't have much time. I know we've had our differences, but
What? What? Speak. I've got matters to attend.
there is something I need you to hide.
Saw that coming. That one didn't get me.
Conflict.
What the fuck? Oh.
It's so fucking wrong. Why couldn't he just let us
No. You will not break me.
That's right. Traveler's a badass. Oh. The warden.
Warden! Don't do it!
Oh, goodness.
The Pathfinder would rather die than harm us.
Is the end of the game? Can't tell. I can't fucking tell anymore. Ah, I made it back. Oh.
Yes. What is it? What's wrong?
Traveler's freaking out.
Fire. Spreading.
Oh no. It's happening.
She called him dark.
Easy. The essences. We need to get them out of here. Quickly.
Animal. Fighting. Get them out!
I will. I promise. Just try to.
She called him the Pathfinder.
The Pathfinder.
What is your purpose?
Going through the awakening process again? I like his little limp.
Easy there.
What is this place? Have I been here before?
It's my workshop. I've already brought you up to speed once here. When you first connected to the terminal.
They went silent. The essences. You stopped them.
I'm afraid that what I managed to do was only a temporary measure. We need to get them out of here. Otherwise, they won't stop. They're fighting. The state they are in is not natural for them. They've already spent too much time in your phylactery.
Can't I just release them?
Unfortunately, they have bonded with you so deeply that they have become an integral part of your identity. You can try to replace them with others, but if you simply remove one of them, your whole being will collapse.
What will happen to me then?
Eventually, they will win. They will take over and deprive you of your sanity, of your mind. You're running out of time.
Can you do something about it?
In order to get them out safely, I have to fix the terminal. And believe me, I've tried every possible way, and it still won't cooperate with me.
The Pathfinder. Does that name mean anything to you?
I'm truly not sure. Maybe. I think I once came across such a term in the archives. I'll have to rummage through them. Maybe I'll find something useful. And where are you going, traveler?
I need to talk to Dr. Stewart. He may know what happened to the Pathfinder. If I succeed, maybe...
If they're bonding with her, that's probably why she's getting more human. It's like the Warden,
Maybe the terminal will cooperate.
who's
with
definitely not the fucking Pathfinder.
Very
time then. I'll search the archives, and you do what you must. I'll be here when you're done. But please, be careful.
It does have a whole ass workshop down here. Ah, this is okay. I see. Okay, then let's do this. Talk to Zibbert. Let's see what Zibbert has to say. Table.
Doctor? Dr. Zibbert? Where are you?
What happened? Where is everybody?
Angela.
You were...
I never extracted Angela.
But how?
It's you. You were in the shelter with me. Oh, God. Edward. What happened to him?
He's safe.
He's safe.
Then where the hell is he? Ah, what's happening to me?
I don't know. What's the last thing you remember?
I ran out of the shelter. I was looking for my mom. I went to the hospital, but I couldn't find her.
Right, she was in the hospital.
I got sick. I got sick badly. I didn't find her. But I did find a doctor. He, I was looking for the cure. I did my best.
Is she meld with fucking Zibbert?
No, that wasn't me. Those are all these thoughts.
Angela. I need you to reach out within your mind and remember something. A memory that wasn't supposed to be yours.
A lot of things shouldn't have happened. So many things I should have done. So many I shouldn't. Always trying to be selfless. Always the fucking consequences!
Angela, I know, but I think you possess the memories of a man called Dr. David Zibbert.
She did fucking meld with him.
Zibbert. Oh yeah. He's in here. With us.
I need to talk to him.
promised I would find it. That I would find the cure.
David? You need to tell me what you've done with the other traveler.
The visitor. The visitor?
You need to tell me how to find him.
They were onto us. He was not safe with me. I had to hide him away.
Keep him secret.
Keep him safe.
Was I wrong?
An execution order was given.
Kill them all!
Healthy or sick. Patients or doctors.
It didn't matter to them.
Angela. Gabriel. All of them. I tried to save as many patients as I could, but I was the one who took him. I was the one who drew the military to the hospital.
So did I kill those people?
You're doing your best to save him.
You were doing your best to save him.
I shouldn't have.
I never should have risked taking him out from the steelworks.
I remember. I had a daughter once. Oh, a beautiful little girl. I wonder what happened to her.
Angela, there's no time. David, tell me where he is.
She has a different father now.
David, please. Where?
Elisa. In the abbey on the outskirts. That was the only place they wouldn't have looked in. I needed to trust her. I needed her help. My little girl.
Lisa. Fuck. Lisa got mentioned earlier. When the traveler's freaking out.
I will. But I have one more question. Tell me what exactly happened.
Yeah, where is this fucking disease coming from?
We let everything slip out of our hands. We failed. As doctors.
As humans.
Did we bring the sickness to the world?
I believe it was always here. Waiting.
Can you make this all okay again?
I'll try.
What the fuck? Okay.
Calculating coordinates for the next extraction target.
Mother Elisa Zibbert.
Mother Elisa.
The fuck? Okay, yeah, the warden needs. I need to talk to this guy. Oh, this was hidden. Interesting. Question the warden. And then save. I'm assuming this is the finale after this. But I'll do it next time I stream. Warden.
I'm back.
get the information we were looking for?
It's possible that the Pathfinder's last known location was an abbey on the outskirts of the city. Sector A25. The doctor entrusted him to his daughter, Eliza. She is my next target.
Interesting. The outskirts. Let me see. You'll have to use a different tram. There. This should open the other station.
What about you? Have you found anything?
Oh yes, I did. I made a truly fascinating discovery.
Let's hear it.
It appears this lost lamb of ours is not just a mere traveler. You see, to be assigned to the role of a Pathfinder is to serve as the vanguard among all those awakened to fulfill the collective's calling. It was up to them to create new rifts for those like you. Those who drive their anchor into the ground and tune it into them. But the Pathfinders didn't use such trivial tools themselves. Oh no. With their great relics, they were more powerful, unique, priceless.
Independent.
Indeed, one might say. If we could harness even a little piece of that power, with his help, we could rebuild everything, even ourselves.
What about the terminal?
Yes, we would be able to connect to it and upload the essences that are haunting you. We could save you, make you free, and more. Doesn't that sound wonderful to you, traveler?
When we finally find him, are you sure he'll be on our side?
Where does this question come from?
I met his target. He refused to extract her.
Someone like a Pathfinder can't just act on a whim. His actions must have been more deliberate and purposeful than we think. Maybe he knew something that we are yet to understand.
Or maybe he was simply affected by them. Like you.
To be a good traveler is to obey the principles of the vocation. But if, in devoting ourselves to it, we focus more on obeying the collective's commandments than truly helping them, maybe some rules need to be bent. Maybe we need to listen to the voice of those we want to save. Such is our calling. I promise you, this will give us all a chance for a fresh start. You need to trust me. Can you?
I trust you. I don't, but...
I trust you.
Okay. She's got new dialogue.
Yes? What else?
God damn, okay.
Can you tell me anything more about the Pathfinder?
I strongly suspect that who we seek could be the very last one before you awoke, obviously.
So, he was my direct predecessor. But how? Has there been a mix-up?
Exactly. The Pathfinder has somehow affected the system, erased his trace.
But the Collective should simply replace him immediately after he's ended his journey.
But the thing is, he didn't. Not officially, at least. You see, there is a chance he may have gone rogue and somehow bypassed the program. Made himself invisible to track. This way, the system would think he is still fulfilling his vocation and wouldn't send a replacement. Made sure there will be no more travelers.
So why did the traveler get
But
awakened?
Why do such a thing?
Who knows? Prominent individuals are often considered crazy and unapproachable by their fellows.
Prominent individuals?
Of all the Collective's servants, such as Leviathans, Praetorians, Trackers, and also yours truly, Wardens. It is the Pathfinders who are the cornerstone of our calling, of what we are. Is there something else I can help you with?
So many classes of these fucks. It wasn't brought to change the disease.
It wasn't us who brought the change to the world of people.
Did you ever doubt that?
No, but now I am more sure of it.
So you did. But don't worry. There's nothing wrong with that. Even we know little about the change. We don't know where it came from. What we do know is what kind of world it left behind.
Did you read any research on the topic?
None of which have yielded answers about what the change actually is.
They didn't have much time.
Perhaps they were asking the wrong questions. Perhaps this mystery was not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced.
What are you talking about?
It seems to me that the nature of the change cannot be investigated in a conventional way. It is too ephemeral and fleeting in its essence.
You think it's something beyond ordinary understanding?
I doubt, therefore I am. Am I not?
Well,
How vague.
at least we know it wasn't us.
Is there something else I can help you with?
Essences. Taking over the traveler.
These essences. You said they have become an integral part of me. How do we know the terminal will know how to deal with them?
Trust me, it knows. And although it seems somewhat tattered, it comprehends more than we think.
I hope it does. Their feelings, they are beginning to project themselves onto me.
What do you mean? Are they becoming even more aggressive?
They are, but I feel their inner turmoil their dread over what is about to happen.
Do you mean
Anxiety.
anxiety?
Yes. I feel it very clearly, but it is not my feeling. Not really. Is it?
Amazing. They have indeed become an integral part of your mind matrix. Do you feel anything else?
No. Although there is something they crave. They need to be on the move, to be somewhere else.
In the bosom of the collective?
I don't know. Just anywhere else. I feel that they are getting tired. That they would probably prefer not to exist at all.
It's easy for a battered mind to be told that a soothing embrace of nothingness is freedom. But that's a lie. Any fate is better than none.
We have to find the Pathfinder.
This is how we will manage to restore your peace of mind and save you.
This is not just about me.
Very good. Is there something else I can help you with?
She's feeling. Alright, last one. Not the woman Pathfinder refused to extract, but Angela. No, Veronica.
About the woman whom the Pathfinder refused to extract.
Yes? What about her? Do you know who she was? Did you catch her name?
Yes. Her name was Veronica Kaminsky. I met her in the hospital.
In the hospital? Was she touched by the change then?
No. She was a doctor.
Oh. So she was trying to save other people?
Not exactly. Together with another doctor whom the terminal had assigned to me, they tried to smuggle the Pathfinder out of the hands of the army.
Is that so? Why did they want to do that?
Apparently, to protect him.
Protect him? That's wonderful. In most cases, people react with fear and aggression as soon as they see us. Instead of trying to bring us closer to their caring hearts, do you think they had a purpose in doing so?
It seems to me that they saw him as a key to fighting the disease. Perhaps they hoped he would help them stop it.
I hope they didn't want to cut him into pieces and see what he had inside.
No. It seems to me that this was precisely the fate they wanted to protect him from.
Interesting. Do you think you'll meet her again?
I hope so, yeah.
I hope so.
Well then, maybe that's the way fate will have it. Is there something else I can help?
That's the final question. I can go and save.
In that case, let's not waste time. I feel that your most important task is ahead of you. Be wary, traveler.
Traveler. Sickle. mysterious door, and we have... Oh, that was it. Okay, so we're gonna go back. Cat room. Curious, can I go in here? Key. Okay. Something here? No, okay. Back to the apartment. Checking our kitties. Who's a good kitty? Who's a good Merlin?
That felines have 9 lives.
A new note. Threatening proximity. Deep have I delved into the bowels of the terminal to examine its energy core. While I managed to fine-tune it, the danger I've faced hasn't paid off in any real solution. They are appearing dangerously close now, their screams reverberating through the corridors beneath what was once our sanctuary. Biomass erupts violently in places where there was none before, spreading at an alarming rate, as if enraged by our heightened presence. We must strengthen the security measures. The tasks seem endless. Still other ones later on, right? Just the cats.
It's uncanny. The terminal seems still functioning. Of course, it is one dire wreck, but it still chooses new targets for extraction. It seems she has indeed picked up where the last left off, and so the vocation indeed continues, as I believe. What puzzles me, however, is how the targets are selected for her. There seems to be a key to this. Does the terminal want to show us something? Does it want to draw our attention to something? Does it force us into some kind of investigation through which we will discover the secrets of mankind's salvation? Probably these are just my fantasies. Nevertheless, it's been a very long time since I felt as if they want to tell me something. Or rather, tell her.
Oops. Wrong place. The warden is definitely the Pathfinder. There's no way he's not. I think they gave it away with the X-ray of the Pathfinder missing an arm and a leg. Oh well. That is where I'm going to call it for now. And next time, that'll be the end of the game, I think. Next stream will be the finale. And then from there, I can start these scary games for the season. So, we have those to look forward to. I won't waste any more time. I'm getting very tired. So, Wanderers, as always, farewell and take care.